we are going to start with what? With the paired passage. And let us start with what? With reading the blurb. Passage number 1 is adapted from Nicholas Haydourn, The Enduring Political Illusion of Farm Subsidies. I need people to understand the word subsidies. You might encounter a word like that in the SAT, اللي هو sum of money granted by the country, by the government maybe, or by the state to help maybe farmers here. Okay, so that's the subsidies. Subsidies نسميها إعانات, okay, or granted money. خلاص؟ طيب. Till here is fine. يبقى عندنا the enduring political illusion of farm subsidies. And that was 2004. The Independent Institute originally published August whatsoever. Anyway, we don't care about this. Passage number 2 is 2015 by Mark Anestis. Since, and starting from here I need to underline, since 1922, the US government has subsidized, what does mean subsidized? Granted money. Subsidized what? The agriculture industry by supporting the price of crops. And when they supported the price of crops by giving grants, by giving money, سموها يا شباب commodity subsidies. Commodity means what? Product. افتكروا الكلام ده كويس اللي في الباسج. You might encounter it in some other passages. طيب. Paying farmers let their fields go fallow. What does it mean? And they are going to also subsidize farmers by paying them to let their fields go uncultivated. Why land can be uncultivated? أنا ممكن يا شباب اللاند أقرر أنا كفارمر إن أنا أو كgovernment إني this land needs to rest a while, right? يعني for a period of time I'm not gonna plant any kind of what vegetation in the land. خلاص كده فبريح الأرض شوية maybe to restore some kind of fertility, أرجع خصوبة الأرض شوية. طيب الحكومة ساعتها لو الفارمر he felt that he has to do this kind of what following his land إن هو يسيب أرضه من غير زراعة, الحكومة هتسيبه؟ لا يا كمان يا شباب, they give him some kind of what subsidies اللي سموها conservation subsidies. What else? What are the other kinds of what subsidies? Helping farmers purchase crop insurance اللي اسمها crop insurance subsidies. يعني يساعدوا الفلاحين المزارعين انهم يشتروا crop insurance زي ما احنا بنروح للسيارة كده ونعمل عليها insurance. احنا كمان helping farmers to purchase crop insurance اسمها crop insurance subsidies. And the last type of what? Of subsidies and compensating farmers, أعوض الفلاحين for uninsured losses. What are the uninsured losses يا ميار due to what يا بنتي natural disasters or disasters فسموها disaster subsidies. طب يا مستر why are the disaster subsidies we call them what? Uninsured. لأن طبعا لما نيجي نعمل حضراتكم insurance لأور car, a car insurance, insurance against what يا محمد يا حسين, insurance against accidents, against injuries, against even death in accidents, but for the natural disasters there are no insurance يا عبد الله يا رضا. فعشان كده they grant them some subsidies. فهمنا يا شباب يعني ايه كلمة subsidies؟ subsidies مساعدات مالية provided by the government to the farmers. وقلنا there are different types of subsidies here. The following passages, both of them, discuss these programs. وطبعا ال following passages written by two different what? Authors or writers. وتعالوا بقى خلاص احنا خدنا كده. طيب عرفنا هنا يا أساتذة something very important يعني ايه subsidy ويعني ايه subsidize ويعني ايه to turn او to leave your land fallow like uncultivated and why. خلاص that's the blurb. Let us go to the first part of the passage number 1 and start reading. With the first sentence يا شباب as you can see it here Something is rotting down on the farm. يا عمر يا أيمن, is it positive or negative? Negative, thank you very much. Okay, something is rotting down on the farm. اللي أقول له يستخدم المايك, لو سمحتوا استخدموا المايك. So that's negative. Something is rotting down on the farm. A recent General Accounting Office study found that the US Farm Subsidy Program, a multi, and then he's gonna what? Define what يا شباب? Define the subsidy program اللي هو provided by the US government, اللي هو a multi-billion-dollar system of direct payments to American farmers. That's the subsidy. خلاص؟ اللي مش عارف subsidy in the what? In the blurb. That's the definition. Clear till here? So the subsidy program, a multi-billion-dollar system of direct payments to American farmers, uses administrators who are ill-trained. That program uses administrators. Administrators means what? Officials. People in charge of this program. Like those people are what? Are ill-trained. يعني they are not what? They are not competent. So ill-trained means what? Not competent. مش مؤهلين كويس. Okay? And poorly monitored. There is no monitoring. There is no supervision. And who give away millions of taxpayer dollars to farmers. Give away, that's very negative. وهم يعني يا شباب بيضيعوا millions of taxpayer dollars to farmers who are actually ineligible for the program. وكأنهم they give the money, that subsidy, to farmers who are ineligible. And what does it mean ineligible? يعني they don't deserve that grant subsidy or that program. This report should horrify lawmakers. This report إني اللي هي subsidy program اللي هو let us say run or administrated by those people who are ill-trained. بصراحة this report should horrify what? Lawmakers. لازم بقى يبقى جرس إنذار لمين؟ لصناع القرار أو صناع القانون, right? But it probably won't. خلاص? So he's speaking very negatively about what? About the subsidy program. Let us go to the other paragraph. والother paragraph يا أستاذة ميار يا أستاذة روان بدأ إزاي؟ From 1995 to 2002, the United States Congress doled out more than $114 billion to farmers. تخيلوا بقى $114 billion to farmers. Why? One misconception is that it's a kind of misunderstanding. People don't understand. Subsidies are a boon to consumers. الناس فاهمة غلط. فاهمين ايه يا بنتي؟ ان subsidies are a boon to consumers. Something really good for the consumers. اللي هو احنا. Because they lower food prices. And this is a kind of what? A kind of misconception. This is not true. This ignores the fact that consumers, remember this, consumers are also paying for these subsidies. The fact is ignored. What is the fact? إن إحنا consumers we pay for these subsidies through what? طبعا taxes. إحنا we pay taxes. And the subsidies are taken from our taxes that we pay. طيب. Because of inefficiencies in the program, لوجود some kind of defects في بعض الأخطاء يا شباب in the program, we taxpayers نحن دافع الضرائب will pay more in taxes than we will ever get back in lower corn or wheat prices. يعني the benefit that we take from lowering the prices of wheat or corn خلاص كده أقل بكتير من التاكسز that we have to pay. التاكسز دي اللي بياخدوها عشان يعملوا بقى ايه يا بنات يا شباب يعملوا بيها subsidy program. You got the point. طيب. Let us go to the other paragraph, and here somebody might ask, teacher, I mean, why don't you go for bookends? By the way, I can go for bookends, but here because the topic is a bit has to do with economy, a bit has to do with agriculture. So I mean, like what we might face a passage like that. In fact, farm subsidies are not even intended to reduce the food prices significantly. Even when they give some subsidies to the farmers, that would never tend to reduce food prices dramatically. مش ال reduction اللي احنا we are expecting خالص. When prices يا عمر يا أيمن, when prices are too low, farmers lose money. تخيلوا بقى, بصوا الحدوتة بقى, it's a cycle. لما ال prices are too low, prices of let us say agricultural products بتنزل, farmers lose money. طب وبعدين, to prevent this situation, ايه اللي بيحصل؟ ال Congress also pays farmers additional conservation subsidies. لان هو مش عايز الفارمر يتضرر من جراء نزول الاسعار دي, فكمان يروح مديله بقى ايه another or additional subsidies اسمها conservation subsidies to leave their land fallow. And why they should leave their land fallow? What does mean fallow? We said uncultivated. ليه سيبها uncultivated؟ لان احنا عندنا يا شباب demand and supply. الديماند اللي هو by the consumers, والسبلاي احنا كمزارعين بنطلعه اللي هي البرودكتس. فعشان لما الاسعار تنزل قوي, فانا اروح اعمل لك انا كجفرمنت additional what subsidy. وفي نفس الوقت ليه بقى بقول لك كده؟ وبقول لك الاديشنال سبسيدي لحاجه واحده بس, please leave your land fallow uncultivated. ليه؟ thereby thus lowering supply. العرض نقلله, lowering supply and boosting what? prices again. وبالتالي لو السبلاي is lowered is reduced, ايه اللي هيحصل يا استاذ يا عمر يا حازم؟ الاسعار بالتالي it's gonna be what? It's gonna be higher, it's gonna increase. We are taxed to lower prices. تخيلوا بقى, احنا الكونسيومرز we are the victims. We have been victimized by the government. احنا ضحوا بينا. We are taxed to lower prices. احنا دفعنا ضرائب عشان to lower prices and then taxed to raise them again. تخيلوا بقى, ف we are what? We are the victims. لغاية دلوقتي he is speaking and he's writing very negatively about what? About program subsidies provided by the government. Let us go to the other part here, and by the way, if you want to read part of it, that would be fine as well. Another myth. ولما رايتر يقول لك another myth, that's not true. That's not true. Another myth is that subsidies increase exports. تخيلوا بقى. What does it mean subsidies? الإعانات المالية دي, الجرانتس اللي provided by the government دي بتزود الصادرات. طب ايه المشكلة؟ واحد يقول لي ايه؟ مستر ما فيها foreign currency, ما فيها عملة صعبة واجيب فلوس من التصدير. لا, تخيلوا فيها حاجة أمر من كده. And thereby benefit the American economy. The American economy will benefit from what? The exports. By lowering the price of farm products. Because why they export a lot? Because they lower the price of farm products. And so making them more attractive to foreign what? Consumers. أنا كواحد, I live in Egypt for example. I live somewhere in any other part of the world. apart from طبعا the United States. أنا بشتري البرودكتس منك رخيصة. الحكومة بترخص كده. It is good for the economy. خلاص كده. لكن في النهاية this ignores two realities. What are the two realities? First, and I need to read first, and of course if there is first, there should be what? There should be second somewhere here in the paragraph. First, farm subsidies transfer wealth from taxpayers to foreign consumers. تخيلوا بقى. farm subsidies transfer بتحول الويلث from taxpayers من احنا consumers to foreign consumers. الناس اللي هم مستهلكين اللي في العالم كله هيستفادوا منها. Just as efficiently as they transfer wealth to domestic what? Consumers. طيب, second one. Farm subsidies are actually harming American exporters. ليه بقى harming American exporters يا شباب؟ We need to understand, and there is an example here. In March 2005, the World Trade Organization, منظمة التجارة العالمية, عملت إيه؟ Ruled that, ادت قرار that the American cotton subsidies violated global free trade rules. And what is the global the global trade, what are we? What is the global free trade rules اللي هي يا شباب قواعد السوق الحرة العالمية، ان كل الناس بتصدر لكل الناس. ليه بقى؟ لانك انت كامريكان جفرمنت اديت سبسيديز للبرودكتس، ليور برودكتس، للفارمرز، فبالتالي يو ريديوس ذا برايسز، فبالتالي يو اكسبورتد مور ذان اذر كونتريز اللي هي يا شباب بتكلف فلوس كتير، right؟ ف that's not fair regarding the global free trade rules. طيب فاهمين الحدوته دي يا شباب؟ تاني احنا we live in a small village، ففي بقى منظمة التجارة العالمية والجلوبال فري تريد رولز، ان لا يعني انا لو انت بتطلع الكوتون من ايجيبت مثلا ب every cotton whatever bag for like $10، يبقى المفروض some other countries go for 11 for 10 for 9 but you don't go for example 7 or 6 because this is not fair. هيبقى unfair لكل البلاد التانية اللي مشتركة معاك في المنظمة دي اللي هي ايه World Trade Organization, which could lead to billions of dollars in retaliatory tariffs and penalties. وده بيؤدي لبنالتي. المنظمة دي اللي هي World Trade Organization بتفرض penalties على impose let us say sanctions و penalties و more tariffs و more money للبلد دي، فبالتالي الاكسبورترز will be what will be harmed. فهمتوا الحدوته هنا لغايه هنا؟ fair enough. اخر باراجراف هو قاله يا اساتذه، اخر باراجراف هو قاله او قبل الاخير، the worst misconception، اسوأ حاجه في الموضوع. wait a sec. The worst misconception, the worst misunderstanding is that we need these subsidies to save the small family farmer. And that's a conception. What does mean that's a conception? It means يا هاجر that's not true. تاني when I say يا شباب the worst misconception, it means what? That's not true. Is that we need these subsidies to save the small family farmer. ده الهدف من السبسيديز يا أستاذ عبد الله أشرف، يا أستاذة ميار، ده الهدف منه. عبد الرحمن حسام معايا، الهدف منه يا ابني ايه؟ ان احنا to save the small family farmer. Indeed, according to a 2009 poll voting, about 77% of Americans support giving subsidies to small family farms. ده حقيقي. يعني معظم الاحصائيات بتقول ان احنا نساعد السمول فاميلي farming farms. But and that's a turn of direction. According to the environmental working group, منظمة معينة أو مؤسسة معينة، 71% of farm subsidies go to the top 10% of beneficiaries. مين اللي بياخد السبسيديز دي؟ الناس اللي هم ايه؟ 10% of beneficiaries، 10% من المستفيدين اللي هم الايه يا شباب؟ اللي هم الويلثي فارمرز، الناس اللي معاهم فلوس كتير وعندهم أراضي كتير. Almost all of which are what? Are large corporate families, farms، مؤسسات كبيرة جدا. You got the point? فهمنا الايديا يا شباب which was very clear. نيجي the last paragraph here. last paragraph here is rich corporate farmers اللي هم ايه يا شباب؟ 10% of beneficiaries اللي بيستفيدوا بالفعل من السبسيديز are an enormously powerful lobby in American politics. هم they form a lobby in the American politics. هم بيكونوا lobby. عارفين اللوبي يعني ايه؟ الله أعظم. يعني تكتلات مع بعض، هم مكونين تكتلات في السياسة الأمريكية. How؟ بيعملوا ايه بقى حضراتكم؟ Agribusiness and farm insurance lobbies pump nearly $100 million into political campaigns every year, believe it or not. And that's a kind of what? A kind of corruption. ده نوع من الفساد يا شباب، ان الاجري بيزنس اند فارم انشورنس لوبيز، التكتلات الزراعية دي والتجارية دي، بيدفعوا حوالي كام يا شباب؟ $100 million into political campaigns في الحملات الانتخابية بتاعت الأمريكا. And the floodgates show no sign of closing. flood gates. وفلاد جيتس هنا يا شباب معناها ايه؟ فلاد جيتس عارفين اللي هو الجيت اللي بفتحها عشان تطلع الميه والجيت اللي اقفلها عشان تطلع الميه. هنا what does he mean by the floodgate؟ معناها هنا ايه؟ the immoral funding، الفندنج الغير اخلاقي. the floodgates show no sign of closing، الحنفيه دي ما بتقفلش. وكأني the what? the tap of what? of corruption will never be what? will never be closed. So don't be surprised if the Gauss reports kind of organization of mismanagement and waste go unheeded. يعني nobody cares about it. Politicians like their payouts almost as much as the big farmers and their insurance companies do. البوليتيشنز رجال السياسه بيحبوا الباي اوتس، بيحبوا حد يدفع لهم الفلوس بتاعتهم، خلاص كده، اللي هم يعني اللارج بيمنت اللي بياخدوها على طول زي any other insurance what companies. حضراتكم كان في الباسج دي وكانت صعوبتها كالتالي، ان احنا لما رحنا هنا في الفيرست question it wasn't about what passage number 1. فطبعا this is not the order of what of the real SAT، لازم تبقوا عارفين كده. السؤال ده بيتعمل في الاخر خالص when we finish reading what passage 1 and passage number what passage number 2. Let us go to the first question or the question that have to do with what passage number 1. Ahmed Hassan, would you read the first question please?
The first sentence of passage 1 refers primarily to the author's belief that...
Wait a minute. And let us go to the first sentence. And I'm going to ask Hajar. Ya Hajar, use your mic please. And let us go to the first sentence. And here is the first sentence. Hajar, something is rotting down on the farm. Is it positive or negative? Go ahead.
It's negative.
It's negative, thank you very much. And if you want to make sure how negative, a recent general accounting, and you complete reading this and the way he spoke negatively about what the subsidies, okay? So something is rotting down on the farm. So the question is, the first sentence of passage number 1 refers primarily to the author's belief that, and let us go for something very negative. The American government is not doing enough to help small farmers? Of course, no. Some American farmers are violating the law? We haven't seen that. A federal agricultural program is unfair and ineffective? If we completed reading this, that's the program which we call it what يا شباب? We call it subsidy program or subsidies program. Unfair and ineffective. American farmers are struggling to compete in international markets? We haven't read this in the first passage, in all of the first passage. Let us go to question number 3. And question number 3 has to do with what? With passage number 2. I'm not going to do it. Here is question number 4. Who's going to start reading?
Question 4, the author of passage 1 believes that the GAO report probably won't horrify lawmakers because...
Okay, great. Mister, is there any evidence-based question? Yes. Okay. The following provides the strongest evidence for the answer to the previous question. Okay. Here. Tell me. The author of passage 1 believes that the GAO or GAO report probably won't horrify, scare lawmakers because... Let us, all of us, go to D here, okay? Let us go to D here. Of course, we are going to try A, B, C, that's for sure, but it was homework after all. 54 to 57. And I need somebody to read 54 to 57 and tell me an answer. 54 to 57. So I'm going to start from here till 57, till maybe here. Go ahead. Who's going to start reading?
British corporate farmers are an enormously powerful lobby in American politics.
Okay.
Agribusiness and farm insurance lobbies pump nearly 100 million into political campaigns every year. And floodgates show no sign of closing, so don't be surprised if the GAOs...
That's fine. Up till 53, up till 50 what? 53 up till 55. We are done with this one. So that's fine. So what do you think? What do you think? What we have read here? Rich corporate farmers are enormously powerful lobby, تكتل قوي in American politics. Agribusiness and farm insurance lobbies pump nearly 100 million into the political campaigns every year. So here, you go for what, ya Ziad, ya Muhammad?
D.
Thank you very much. Many members of Congress receive benefits from pro-subsidy farm lobbies. Thank you very much. So question number 7. Go ahead, Yarawan.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Passage 1 mentions the results of the 2009 poll, primarily 2.
Okay, you remember the poll in 2009? Okay, why did he mention it? 42 to 45, and let us go to 42 to 45. The worst misconception is that we need these subsidies to save the small family farmer. Indeed, according to the poll, about 77% of Americans supporting giving subsidies to small family farms. Okay, so till here, and what is the purpose? What do you think, Ibnti? What is the purpose? Is
A general sentiment.
confirm a general sentiment, a general feeling. طب what about B? Refute, prove something is wrong. Refute a misconception. Of course, no. Change the focus of the discussion. No. Reveal a surprising finding. Maybe somebody stopped here a bit. Is it tempting, Ahmad Hassan, or it was okay? Of course, we don't reveal the surprising finding, but confirm a general sentiment. What is the general sentiment? It is a misconception. It is a misconception, and he's not siding with this kind of view. You got the point? He's not supporting it. And the evidence is, the worst misconception is that we need these subsidies to save the small family farmers. Indeed, according to the poll, that's to confirm. But that's a confirmation of what? Of the previous sentence. I think it is very clear. Here, as if here, starting from indeed, he's detailing it. He is elaborating what the previous sentence. You got my point, right? Then 8. Who's going to read number 8? Hajar, are you ready? Hajar.
Yes, Mr.
If the author.
If the author of passage 1 were to use the data in the graph to support his main thesis,
Okay.
he would most likely mention.
Okay, and I want people to write here, Ya Omar, Ya Ayman, main thesis means what? Central idea or central claim. Main claim if you want, okay? If the author of passage 1 were to use the data in the graph to support his main thesis, he would most likely mention what? وتعالوا لي كده يا شباب هنروح فين؟ للجراف. Of course, we know the main idea of what? Of passage number 1. Okay, but we need to know if the author of passage number 1 were to use the data in the graph to support his main thesis, he would most likely mention what? And here, as you can see, I don't know whether it's clear or not, but here we have conservation subsidies, اللي هي this one, and here crop insurance subsidies, اللي هي this one, the black one, okay? We have got the crop insurance subsidies, the black one here, and disaster subsidies. I don't think, disaster, it could be, this is the disaster one, right? This is the disaster one. Commodity, so commodity, so I have to go for this one, maybe the white one. Okay, so what do you think? What do you think? Do you accept C, the expansion or increase of crop insurance subsidies from the late 1990s to the late 2000s? اللي هي يا شباب here. Look at this one. If he has to use what? It's here. Question number what? Question number 8. The expansion, and I want you to write here, increase. The increase of the crop insurance subsidies from the late 1990s to the late 2000s. Okay, let us go to the crop insurance subsidies. Where is the crop insurance subsidies? Here, اللي هي this one. When بقول expansion from 1990s, like from here till from here till what يا شباب till 2000 okay till 2000 okay 2000 we're talking about maybe here so if you go to the crop subsidies here almost it was here so there was a kind of what was a kind of increase do you understand? Who doesn't understand? From 1990s it's here 2000 before 2010 or till 2010 okay so as you can see here it was a sort of what expansion a sort of what increase okay Mr. What does this have to do with the main idea ما هو في المين idea بيقول لك ان الجفرمنت provided every type of subsidies conservation subsidies, commodity subsidies, crop insurance subsidies, disaster subsidies. There was a kind of what? Increase. According to what? According to the main idea. Hopefully you understand. Then let us go to question number 12. In line 57, the floodgates. You remember the floodgates are controls against what? You remember the floodgates? Let us go to 57. We're talking about what politicians and the lobbying, and if you still remember this one 57 يا أساتذة 57 and I'm gonna start from here. You remember this when we said that the subsidies اللي هي money granted to the farmers went to only what? Rich corporate farmers. اللي هم rich corporate farmers are an enormously powerful lobby in American politics. Agribusiness and farm insurance lobby pump nearly what? $100 million into political campaigns every year. And the floodgates show no sign of closing. So floodgates here. فاكرين احنا قلنا ايه؟ The tab is not closed. The tab of what? The tab of corruption. خلاص كده حنفية الفساد مش هتبطل. خلاص؟ فهير I know you might have some difficult vocab, but for sure I will never go for environmental destruction. That's for sure. I will never go for emotional outburst. Okay, when you have got something to reveal to your whatever the one that you maybe are close to, intimate to. It's not necessary capital. Is it necessary capital? Is it money which is necessary? No, of course. But it is unscrupulous funding. واكتبوا لي على كلمة unscrupulous means what? Very good. Immoral. Write it down لو سمحتوا. Immoral funding. You got it? No principles in it. ما فيش أي مبدأ فيها. That's it. Hopefully you understand it. Teacher, I did it B, but I didn't understand quite well what's unscrupulous funding. Of course, unscrupulous, it means negative, and funding, you say like what? Funding which is not based on principles, لكن ما لهاش علاقة بالenvironmental destruction اللي راح فكر فيها كده. حوالين الكلمة دي flood gates ما كانش فيها كده خالص. ما كانش فيها emotional outburst. ما كانش فيها necessary capital بالمرة. وcapital here means what? Means money. خلاص كده؟ That's it. Let us now go to what? To passage number what يا شباب? Passage number 2. And let us start doing this very quickly. والراجل ده of passage number 2 he started this way. So passage number 2 starting this way. The critics of the US farm subsidy program fail to recognize just how vital these subsidies really are. اجي هنا حضراتكم واكتب disagreement. حد عنده اعتراض؟ تاني. The critics of the US farm subsidy اللي معترضين اللي بينتقدوا the US farm subsidy الإعانات للزراعة اللي عاملاها الحكومة program fail to recognize, they cannot recognize just how necessary these subsidies really are. They are not as burdensome to American taxpayers as the critics claim. And here we are talking here about what? About subsidies. You got it? So here we are talking about what? Subsidies. They are not burdensome. هم مش عبء على الحكومة أو على the American taxpayers as the critics claim. And indeed provide important benefits. Provide important benefits. جميل. By protecting farmers from damaging fluctuations in commodity prices. What is the fluctuation? لما أقول damaging fluctuation يا عبد الله يا رضا يعني أسعار تنزل أسعار تطلع. That's the fluctuation. in commodity prices في أسعار البرودكتس بتاعتهم due to weather disasters or market disruptions. These subsidies help sustain a vital American industry. دي بتساعد الامريكان industry to be stable، يبقى ثابت ومستقر. خلاص؟ he is mainly being very positive when he talks about what? About the subsidies what program. خلاص كده؟ فهمنا الحدوتة يا شباب؟ طيب بعد كده ايه؟ At the same time they protect consumers. تخيلوا بقى مش بس الفارمرز، ده كمان they protect اللي هو السبسيديز program. They protect consumers from what? Price spikes. And when I say price spikes means what? اللي هو the dramatic increase of what? Of prices. بيحمونا احنا ككونسيومرز من ارتفاع الاسعار الجنوني. That can accompany steep drops in what? Crop inventories. اللي هو الستوك اوف كروبس. لو الستوك اوف كروبس حصل فيه يا شباب ايه؟ ديكلاين، فهو بيحمينا احنا من الايه؟ من ال spiky increase of what? Of the prices. Before price supports became common in the مش عارف ايه crop failures. تعالوا كده نشوف هنا ايه يا شباب. تمام. Devastated the lives of farmers and consumers with horrifying frequency. كان بيتكرر كتير جدا انه that would without the subsidies كانت الناس بتتأثر جامد جدا. وبعد كده راح عمل ايه يا اساتذه؟ here الopponents، وopponents عامله زي الكريتكس. احنا عندنا يا اساتذه في عندي proponents اللي هم المؤيدين، advocates المؤيدين، وopponents المنافسين او الكريتكس المعترضين. Opponents say that subsidies distort the free market and create surpluses in supply. دي very good idea، وايديا مختلفة تماما يا عبد الله يا اشرف. فينك يا عبد الله؟ Opponents say that subsidies distort، بتضيع ruin، بتفسد the free market السوق الحر and create surpluses اللي هي ايه يا شباب؟ excess of products، يعني فائض كتير من البرودكتس in supply. خلاص كده؟ but هم بيقولوا كده but ادي turn of direction بيرد عليهم. halting subsidies يا عبد الله اشرف، halting subsidies ان انا to stop subsidies would allow regular shortfalls. هيحصل فيه ايه يا شباب؟ bad consequences، نتائج مش كويسه which are far more damaging than not giving what? Subsidies. وبعد كده ايه يا اساتذه؟ نروح هنا للباراجراف الثاني. يعني here is a good idea وخلاص بقى اتفقنا عليها. Another misconception، كل واحد ليه misconception. Another thing which is not true is that subsidies only benefit the producers. ودي بقى حاجة كده it's a myth، يعني حاجة كده من جابوها منين الناس اللي بيتكلموا كده؟ ما اعرفش. Another misconception is that subsidies only benefit the producers. بتفيد بس اللي هم الفارمرز. In fact بيرد اهو عليهم يا شباب. In fact they help many related industries as well. بتساعد صناعات أخرى معاها including what? Including food processing, distribution and marketing, chiefly by helping to lower the cost of production, and of course the consumers receive the benefit of lower prices. خلاص؟ لغاية هنا ماشي الحال؟ تمام. Let us go to the last paragraph. When assessing the costs and benefits، لما نيجي نقيم to evaluate the costs and benefits of farm payments اللي هي farm subsidies, it is important to compare these subsidies to those of other industrialized nations. ودي كمان another idea يا شباب. الايديا التانية اللي هي ايه يا سيف يا عماد يا سيف يا هشام يا زياد؟ في الاخر خالص قال لك مش هنقعد نتخانق كتير. In order to evaluate the costs and benefits، التكاليف والفوائد، احنا مش للسبسيديز بروجرام احنا محتاجين ان احنا to compare these subsidies to those of other، وthose معناها ايه؟ subsidies of other industrialized nations في المدن او في الدول الصناعية الاخرى. وبدأ يدي example، فبيقول American farmers receive an average of just 20% of their incomes from subsidies. المزارع الامريكي بياخد حوالي فقط 20% من دخل الايه؟ من their incomes، من دخله من السبسيديز. compared to 70% farmers from other what countries. وبدأ يتكلم على other countries يا أساتذة. فأنا أقصد أقول إيه، الفكرة هنا كانت واضحة جدا. I don't have to complete. أجي هنا حضراتكم في الآخر. Although the US farm subsidies programs are not perfect. أنا مش بقول إن الأمريكان فارم سبسيديز دي حاجة كده يعني ما حصلتش. Though it's not that perfect, they provide enormous benefits not only to farms but also to associated industries. بيكرر نفس الايديا يا شباب، مش بس للفارمز لكن للother industries, employing millions of people to and nearly every American consumer. لكن جه في الاخر عمل a kind of compromise، بيوازن ما بين الكوست والبنفيتس. فبيقول ان لا، البنفيتس are what way better or way more than the costs. خلاص كده. تعالوا كده يبقى احنا يا شباب we are done يا بنات with the second passage. Let us go to the first question here اللي has to do with what it is a relationship question, has to do with both passages. Okay, who's going to start reading this?
Then just acknowledge the effectiveness of U.S. farms subsidies and
subsidies اللي هي ايه تاني يا زهوة؟ subsidies يعني ايه؟ قلنا ايه؟ grants, money given to what? to farmers. both passages acknowledge، واكتبوا لي على كلكم كلمة acknowledge، اللي مش عارفها يبقى عنده مشكلة. approves. الاتنين بيقروا بيعترفوا بالeffectiveness، البوزيتيفيتي، الإيجابية والفاعلية of US farm subsidies in what؟ الاتنين بيقروا بها فين؟ مين يقول لي؟ يا ترى expanding American، أنا عايز أقول لكم على دي expanding American exports. اللي expanding American exports ده كانت في passage number 1. Do you agree with me؟ احنا we haven't read it in passage number 2. Cross it out. Assisting smaller farms كانت في passage number كام يا شباب؟ Passage number what؟ No, passage number 1. Increasing agricultural productivity. Increasing agricultural productivity. A big question mark and I haven't almost seen it. Okay. طيب تعالوا بقى كده يا مستر، انت why do you go for stabilizing commodity prices؟ استقرار ال commodity prices فين يا مستر؟ انا حضراتكم لو رحت في passage number 1 وعايزكم كده quickly please follow, keep track of what I say. passage number 1 line number 10 لما قال هنا ايه يا شباب؟ from 1995 to 2002 the United States Congress doled out مش عارف more for 114 billion to farmers. Why? One misconception is that subsidies are a boon to consumer because they lower prices. This ignores the fact that consumer, and by the way, what I'm talking here about is commodity prices. I'm doing commodity prices. Are also paying for these subsidies through taxes. فاحنا we're talking here about what the commodity prices. اللي مش فاهمها لازم يفهم كده. Lowering prices و increasing prices و that has to do with what؟ يا أساتذة commodity prices. What about passage number 2 يا شباب؟ كان في passage number 2 في الفيرست paragraph. أعتقد إنها كانت في الفيرست paragraph passage number 2. يعني start from here. The critics of the US farm subsidies program fail to recognize just how vital these subsidies really are. They are not burdensome. قال هنا إيه يا أستاذة؟ They are not burdensome. That's one. خلاص كده to American taxpayers as the critics claim, and indeed provide important benefits by protecting farmers from damaging fluctuation in commodity prices due to weather disasters blah 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 blah. that has to do with what يا أساتذة؟ with the commodity prices. So أعتقد إن ال commodity prices were mentioned in both passages and it was very clear. خلاص كده. hopefully الناس فهمتها كده. اللي ما فهمش احنا we understand now why stabilizing what commodity prices in both passages. Sorry ما عملناش ده number 3. احنا we didn't do number 3. The author of passage number 2 would most likely regard means what? Consider the taxes mentioned in line 15 as what? فاكرين التاكسز؟ طب هو اتكلم عن التاكسز as something good or bad, vital, important or not important. خلوا بالكم ده the author of passage number 2 يعني he was quite positive, right? فعندي هنا يا اساتذه لاين نمبر 15، لاين نمبر 15 اللي هو التاكسز اللي اتكلم عنها في اللي هي طبعا باسج نمبر 1 كانت ايه؟ كانت التاكسز he talked negatively about it, but with the author of passage number 2 he would regard the taxes as what؟ مين يقول لي؟ Is it a political delusion? Of course no. Delusion means what? Like false belief. أنا عايز حاجة تبقى فيها positivity. Hopefully understand يا شباب. لازم تبقى positive شوية يا ندى. Misplaced priority negative. Technical misnomer, like technical misnomer means what? Which is negative, right? Like inaccurate sort of name. Inaccurate maybe. Inaccurate. Of course, he has to go for what? Worthwhile expenditure. Yes, it's a kind of expenses or a kind of payment that you have to pay as a consumer, لكن it is worthwhile, like what? It is useful. فاحنا اللي يفهم المين idea of the second passage والاttitude بتاع ال second passage author هيعرف انها لازم نختار هنا حاجة very positive. Hopefully you understand. Question number 6. So we are done with this one. We are done with this one as well. Unlike passage number 1. Remember the two different attitudes. The two different attitudes اللي احنا اتكلمنا عنهم والdisagreement الفظيع اللي حصل. Unlike passage number 1. Passage number 2 emphasizes the danger of what? ايه رأيكم يا شباب؟ Is it ندى A corrupt political officials? Corrupt political official كانت فين يا أستاذي؟ كانت فين؟ كانت في passage number what? Passage number 1. Sudden changes in commodity prices, competition in international markets, onerous public tax burdens. اكيد طبعا ما كانش بيتكلم على البيردنز tax burdens يعني that wasn't the case, right? لا ده بالعكس ده هو taxes he said it's not a burdensome that's what you need to know. خلاص كده؟ طيب عندي يا مستر كان في competition in international markets that was the danger of international markets, competition of international markets. I don't think the one. لكن كان بيتكلم على ايه؟ Passage number 2 emphasizes the danger of sudden changes in commodity prices. Sudden changes in commodity what? Prices. Mr. Where can you find this? لو احنا رحنا ل 64 لو انتوا فاكرين 64 اللي كان فيها ايه يا اساتذه؟ فاكرين ال fluctuations؟ It's here. By protecting farmers from damaging fluctuation in commodity prices due to weather disasters and market disruption. That was very clear وقعد يتكلم عنها كتير قوي يا شباب throughout the whole passage. اللي مش واخد باله من دي لو سمحتوا go through the rest of the passage by yourself on your own and try to figure it out. Question number what? Question number 10. The author of passage number 1 would most likely say that the benefit in line what? 87. فاكرين ال benefit in line 87 وكأني اللي هو the response of the author of passage number 1 على كلمة benefit اللي موجودة في line 87. في 87 author passage 2 قال ايه يا اساتذة في 87؟ بصوا كده هنا. This is how he said it. Another misconception is that subsidies only benefit the producers. Only benefit the producers. وبعدين قال in fact احنا لازم نكمل هنا. They help many related industries. خلاص كده؟ خلوا بالكم من benefit هنا. الحاجة الثانية we should not ignore the last paragraph كمان ونحطه في حسباننا بقى. Although the US farm subsidies programs are not perfect, they provide enormous benefits not only مش عارف ايه but فاللي انا اقصده يا شباب here لو احنا قلنا اللي احنا قريناه دلوقتي think about it. Who's gonna tell me an answer? يا ترى البنفيت هنا ممكن الauthor of passage number 1 يقول انها an exception to a rule? Is it an exception? مش هيفكر فيها كده. Enjoyed only by the wealthy. Enjoyed only by the wealthy. يا شباب. Misrepresented by legislators. There is no mention. لكن ساعتها ممكن نقول ايه يا اساتذه؟ offset by its costs means what? even if there is a sort of benefit لكن يظل ان it is what يا شباب it has got its negative costs. You got the point. فاحنا اكتبوا على كلمة offset اكتبوا لي عليها balance. question number 11 ده ما اتعملش. unlike passage 2 يا احمد يا حسن, passage number 1 makes a direct appeal to the reader's what. خلوا بالكم, سيبكم من passage number 2. passage number 1 بتخاطب الريدر ايه؟ بتخاطب ايه في الريدر؟ بتخاطب his sense of humor. يعني يا ترى احنا قعدنا نضحك شويه بقى في هيومر في القطعه وحدوته كده في القطعه يا شباب, ولا ايه الوضع؟ يا ترى يا مستر بتخاطب الانفايرمنتال ريسبونسبيلتي اوف ذا ريدر, وكاني انا كريدر عندي environmental responsibility, مسؤوليه تجاه الانفايرمنت. fiscal prudence. fiscal has to do with what? has to do with money or what? or tax. Prudence means what? Let us say common sense. It could be common sense او العقلانيه في الموضوع. خلاص, لكن كمان انا بقول unlike passage number 2 again passage 1 makes direct appeal to the reader's what? of course distaste for what? ineptitude. واكتبوا على كلمه ineptitude يا شباب اكتبوا عليها incompetence. هتقول لي جبتها منين يا مستر؟ incompetence هو قاعد يحكي كتير قوي يا اساتذه على الانكومبتنس بتوع مين؟ ادي the author of passage number what? passage number 1. الانكومبتنس of the officials اللي هي قال عليهم هنا, قال اني ان uses administrators who are ill-trained and poorly monitored and who give away millions of taxpayer dollars to farmers who are usually ineligible to the program. فهير what? لو passage number 1 بتخاطب مين في الريدر؟ بتخاطب فينا distaste for ineptitude. يعني ايه؟ ان احنا we despise incompetency of what? incompetency of what يا شباب? of those people who are ill what? trained. اعتقد ان كان السؤال ده الى حد كبير يا شباب it was what? difficult. وقلنا floodgates اتفقنا انها unscrupulous what? funding اللي هي immoral what? funding. تاني بقول يا شباب انتوا دلوقتي you need to what? to gauge your own level, your own performance throughout this passage. اللي جاب في الباسج دي حتى لو انا بقول 12 if you got 8 or 9 that would be great. لكن اللي هيحل الباسج دي فهو يعني he is well aware of what? of the attitude of both passages. بدأ يفهم المين idea. What we have done now ان احنا we went through it and it was important to go through it. ممكن يجي لي يا شباب social science passages بالشكل ده فيها الحدوته اللي احنا قلناها كلها النهارده.